All right, Saagar, what's on your radar?
Well, it probably won't surprise any of you to hear that Stop the Steal basically broke my relationship with a lot of the professional and political right. From the beginning, I saw it for what it was. It was a fake coping mechanism, arguably dumber than Russiagate, designed to obfuscate that Trump very narrowly lost the election because he behaved like an idiot for a year during one of the worst public crises in nearly a century. Pretty simple. The real story, in my opinion, is he almost won, which says a lot more about how Americans hate the liberal intelligentsia, even more so than I thought. But that wasn't enough for the coping mechanism and Trump himself, so they invented a lot of theories. So lots of people became amateur statisticians about turnout in bellwether counties should have looked like. Some people became legal experts whenever it became to Pennsylvania election law that the GOP legislature passed. Personal favorite were the ones who abandoned the pretense and they just said the presidential election was stolen. Oh, but not the one that elected a bunch of these Republicans in the House and the Senate. Now, amongst a smarter GOP in D.C., there was a choice that had to be made. Do you go it long, tacitly, with this batshit crazy stuff? Do you try and steer it in a direction? Or do you risk abandoning the base of the party but remain tied to the truth? Most of the people, they made the former choice. I made the latter. I'm not saying it to cast myself as some Lincoln Project dissident. I fully acknowledge I am in the dramatic political minority and effectively politically homeless for the time being. I'm very at peace with that. But the reason why I refuse to give even an inch on Stop the Steal is because I knew this. All policy based upon lies does not work. Eventually, the bill comes due. For the GOP, the first part of that bill was felt in the Georgia Senate race and even the presidential election. Listen to this. If just the number of people who voted Republican in the GOP primary months earlier by mail had voted, both the Senate and the state would have gone red. But the poison has spread with the passage of Georgia's own election rules, which sparked a corporate-wide boycott. Many Republicans said, oh, hell no, we won't let those corporations tell us what to do. Hey, I'm cool with that. Been asking for it a long time. But here is the problem. The impetus for the bill itself was a lie. You're not a hero for passing legislation sparked by lies. You're just a coward. Now, the same continues to be true as Stop the Steal Kool-Aid spreads. My favorite is what's happening right now in Arizona, where I kid you not, they are literally searching for bamboo. Why? Well, I'm going to let one of the officials running that audit explain it to you.
The other day at the press conference, you were talking about bamboo. What was that about?
Well, is that there's accusations that 40,000 ballots were flown in.
To Arizona?
Into Arizona, and it was stuffed into the box, okay? And it came from the southeast part of the world, Asia, okay? And what they're doing is to find out if there's bamboo in the paper. That camera right there, that they take a picture of the ballot, they can really look at depth and find out, is it a hand-marked paper ballot? Because it's a 5K camera. You can see the folds in the ballot because 92% of all the ballots here should have been folded because they came in through an envelope, okay? And so they're doing all sorts of testing to prove if it was or wasn't.
That is the worst case of boomer brainworms I've ever seen. And in a way, I don't even blame the guy. I blame the leaders who refuse to tell him the truth. What he's saying is crazy. Bamboo ballots flown in from China? Literally, where the hell does this even come from? But the truth is, I know. It comes from Trump, who remains the single most popular figure in the Republican Party. And like with all half-assed things that he does, the effort has actually backfired tremendously. Per the Arizona Secretary of State, the fake audit, looking for and having yet to find any election fraud, has actually compromised voting machines that were turned over to a private contractor because of, quote, grave concerns regarding the security and integrity of the machine, and worse. The machines themselves, while being removed from the state, apparently were not allowed to be closely watched by state officials and are now in possession of a firm with an owner who says the election was stolen. This is almost kind of like what Trump people are saying, except this one is true. There actually is something pretty weird going on with these voting machines. And the virus is spreading. Michigan facing its own audit call, where people whose job it is to actually protect elections are saying, hey, turning over voting machines to private contractors with their own political bent is blatantly compromising our election infrastructure. So in other words, in a bid to uncover election fraud, the GOP is actually now creating an actual situation where voting machines will be legitimately suspect. You can't make it up. Will any of this change any Stop the Steal believer's mind? No, absolutely not. I'm not stupid. I never was and probably never will be an authority figure to the true believers. But it does reveal a deeper point. that for those who do have these people's trust, that this is the poison they have wrought. There is no wrestling this to the ground and trying to mold it into something useful. As I said from the beginning, you're either full Venezuelan dominion or you're not. There's no middle ground. Until that reckoning eventually comes within the political right, they will never win back suburban voters. They will never appeal to a popular majority in this country. They'll remain amongst themselves in a party backwater, hunting for bamboo ballots as the left continues its march through institutions. It's just, that clip on the bamboo, I don't want to laugh at the man. Look, I feel bad for him. I feel bad for many of these people because they are completely disillusioned with a lot of people, and they have been sold lies by people who know better.
Yep.
This is the thing about leadership, which is that sometimes it takes the stones in order to say what you know to be true and which people don't want to hear.
Yep.
And you know what? There were many people in our history who were willing to do that, and they paid the price, at least in the short term. In the long run, they were vindicated. And a lot of cowards took the other way out, and this is what they wrought. Now they're actually compromising the election. That's my favorite part, is that now they're actually screwing with the voting machines and making it so that they can't be used in the next election. Was it all worth it? This is what I didn't jump on board the train when the GOP was like, we're waking up to the corporations, they can't tell us what to do. I'm like, yeah, I agree, but you pass a law based upon a lie. Now, even on the merits of the law itself, as we covered, they were too stupid to actually even be able to restrict voting. But that doesn't mean that the impetus and the want to do it was not there. That's what they wanted to do. They pretty much admitted it.
Yeah.
And that's why this entire thing is a joke. Every time, lies beget terrible policy. Iraq, everyone said, oh, well, we're just going to lie about WMD because Saddam is a bad guy. How'd that work out? Russiagate. Oh, well, we know this is all bullshit, but Trump is bad. How did that work out? It happens over and over and over again.
So true. Even think about masks, the way we were lied to at the beginning.
Right.
That screwed up the entire approach to help to turn masking into some weird culture war issue when it should have been incredibly straightforward from the beginning and shouldn't have been allowed to form identities around whether you're pro or anti-mask and pandemic restrictions. You're exactly right about that. And looking back, after January 6th, there was a little bit of a stepping back for some Republicans. You saw Kevin McCarthy, you saw Mitch McConnell, you saw a few of them coming out and saying more definitive, even Lindsey Graham coming out and saying more definitively, look, this is over, we're done with this, we got to move forward. And then they realized that, the base of the party, this was going to be politically challenging for them, and so they lost their courage and they just stepped back from it. And so now, we're left to look to Liz Cheney as some voice of honesty in the Republican Party. What a joke that is. It's an incredibly sad state of affairs, and I understand you hear from a lot of people who really know better. What they'll say is, yeah, but the Democrats did it with Russiagate. The Democrats delegitimized Trump through Russia. Sure. Does that make it okay? Two wrongs don't make it right here, guys. Sorry to break out the preschool playbook.
Both are bad.
Both are bad. Being dishonest and trying to delegitimize an election that was relatively free and fair, as much as elections ever are in America, that's a bad place to be, and it leads to bad results for your party. It leads to really bad results for the country ultimately. And I don't know where this ends, because essentially what you've seen... It won't
end for years.
Essentially what you've seen in the Trump era is sort of escalating series of loyalty tests.
Yeah, right.
Where it's the more ridiculous the claim, and the more you're willing to go along with the ridiculous claim, the more credibility you get. And that's been the pattern for his entire time in office. You're always, and the moment that you give up your dignity and agree to a claim that is wildly ridiculous, well, now you're all the way in. You may as well accept the next utterly ridiculous claim, and so that's where they are.
Yeah, and look, like I said, I know a lot of people don't want to hear this. A lot of people want to believe that Trump won. And, I get it. I understand. But that doesn't make it true. And there's a real lesson to be learned here. He came 45,000 votes away across 3 states from being re-elected president of the United States.
Yeah.
That's crazy. He got more Latino. He had won almost 50% of Latino men. Those 2020 election results broke every single liberal pundit's brain in the way that that election should work. You should celebrate that. That's something that you should look at and say, oh my God, we almost did it.
Yeah.
Power is this close away. It's not far. And yet they said, we're going to do the one thing to make sure that we're probably going to win less votes the next time. You won a historic number of votes, 75 million. That's amazing. That's one of the top GOP performers in 30 years. And yet, it doesn't matter.
You would think that they would have looked at those results and said, like, oh my God, these groups that we thought were just like off the table for us,
we can win.
We could actually appeal to some of these people.
Win.
Like, what could we do to maybe like actually have a majority position here that would lead to majority results for our party in the House and the Senate and the presidency? And instead they're like, let's make sure fewer people can vote. We're not down with these people. Like, let's forget about appealing to them. Let's just try to restrict the vote even further, and let's continue with whatever insane delusions only our hardest core fans are going to believe.
There you go. Like I said, good luck, guys.
Coming up, we've got Michael Starr Hopkins and Emily Chashinsky here for Team Rising when Rising returns.